Welcome back to Retro Rebound. As a lot of you are aware, here on this channel, we're big on collecting physical copies of video games, right? We gotta preserve these video games, and this is how a lot of us connect to this medium, right? You have the actual thing in your hand. You don't go to an online store and download it, or you buy a licensed key. It just doesn't feel the same as going to Best Buy, Walmart, Target, GameStop, what have you, and taking a game off the shelf, putting it there, and buying a real thing. Especially as game prices go up, I feel like, honestly, this is the way to go, because I don't want to pay $70 for something that's just software on a console. But that's just me. But then I saw some headlines all over the interwebs, and ones that I think are quite relevant to this channel, even though the game is quite new. So you may have noticed I'm holding here a copy of Halo Master Chief Collection. Came out in 2014. Imagine you crack this bad boy open, and this thing here, this disc, means absolutely nothing to you. You throw it in your Xbox, doesn't matter. Can't play it. Can't play any of the campaigns through 1 to 4. It's just a disc. That's what's happening right now with Halo Infinite. So we're going to go through an article over on Eurogamer, and we're going to have a little bit of a chat again about physical games, because what's funny is the timing of all this content arrives perfectly where we just posted a video called The Rise of Digital Gaming. And it was there I was talking about price tags of nostalgia with the rumored PlayStation Game Pass, and of course Nintendo's online service, and how we're paying for back compat where Xbox is just off doing their own thing, but they're not supporting it anymore. So our only path forward is to pay for it, it looks like. And honestly, this couldn't have timed out any better. So let's take a look at this article. Of course, if you're new here and you're into more retro nostalgic content, we have plenty of that. But sometimes, as the channel would suggest through the banner, we like to blend modernism into that nostalgia. So this is an example of that. We're talking physical games, which is important for retro, but we're also talking about a new release, and one that's really important to the heritage of Xbox. So let's take a read here. This article again is from Eurogamer, which says, here's a PSA for anyone rushing to stick their Halo Infinite disc in their Xbox. No, the game's campaign is currently not available to play. Those with the physical edition of Halo Infinite report that the disc will install 15 gigabytes or so worth of game files, but then request the player to go online to download the rest. And as we reported earlier, the campaign itself does not go live until 6 p.m. UK time tonight without the ability to preload. So we're going to pause there. Obviously, this article is a couple of days old. By the time you see it, it'll be even a little bit more older. But yeah, this was also prior to launch, where the digital option offered no preloading. So this is one of the issues, is when you're at the mercy, we'll say, of these companies, at the mercy of the digital storefront, there's no other way around. And when the disc isn't working, again, no other way around. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. There's still a lot to read here that I want to go over. The article continues saying disc-based games often ask for a title update before they can be played, but fans have flagged up Halo Infinite in particular, as it seems clear the disc's 15 gigabytes is not the full game. What is actually on Halo Infinite's disc? We've asked Microsoft for more. Halo Infinite's campaign actually weighs in at around 25 gigabytes, with its multiplayer portion around another 4 gigabytes, though these values vary depending which pieces of Halo Infinite you may have already and what you're now looking to install. There's currently no way of installing the campaign without multiplayer, which tallies with how the game's campaign is listed as a $50 DLC over on Steam. And since the game treats the campaign as DLC, the idea of having a disc for the game at all is rather muddied. How do you sell a physical copy of a free-to-play game when what you're really paying for is more of an add-on? With great difficulty. I thought this was frustrating for a number of reasons. Of course, I can go to the classic example, shake my fist and scream at the cloud and go, look what's going on here with my physical game. See what you're doing? I think that situation really does speak for itself. And I don't think the discussion really even needs to go further in that. Like, this alone, I don't think should be occurring so long as discs are being put on store shelves for us to buy. Because what I think of more than anything is, it's Christmas time, and what you're buying is a dead disc for little Jimmy, right? I think of little Jimmy sitting there. They're looking forward to Halo. Halo's T for teen now, right? We can see here on Master Chief Collection, rated M. That life is behind us now. Halo Infinite rated T for teen. So little Jimmy is actually eligible to get Halo Infinite. His parents are cool with it, and little Jimmy unwraps his gifts, and little Jimmy doesn't have either great internet to download this, by the way. It's not even if you have internet or not, but let's say little Jimmy has bad internet. So he throws the disc in, ready to play the game, and there's a humongous update there. Now, on Xbox, and the reason it's important that we flag Xbox for this is because they're already having a lot of issues, and they said they're looking into it, but a lot of companies say a lot of things. But Xbox said that they're looking into their current DRM issues. So currently, I got to bring up the Halo disc. If you're going to throw this into your Xbox for the first time ever, it's going to do a DRM online check. After that, if your Xbox is disconnected out in the middle of the woods, you could put your disc in, but it always does a one-time online check. So what's interesting is this is a company that's all for backwards compatibility, but they actually are currently in the worst situation moving forward when it comes to back compat and being able to play offline. Like, it goes against their beliefs. And so part of me is not really surprised at all that we're seeing Halo Infinite in this state. But what worries me is we have Xbox Game Pass, which I love dearly. Big advocate of Xbox Game Pass, as I'm sure many of you are aware. If you're not, I run a whole Xbox podcast, and we have a segment dedicated to downloads you can do every single week. It's called Defining Duke. Anyway, they are running Game Pass. It's a big subscription service, and they've made it very clear, like, this is their platform for the future. It's not their only product that is really profitable. They have plenty throughout the entirety of Xbox that make them a lot of money. Xbox Live Gold, of course, the games themselves, and then you have Game Pass. And they've said Game Pass on its own is doing its own thing. So you wouldn't think it would be a driving decision maker, but when that's the future of gaming, where they're investing in xCloud, that's growing Xbox. You have to take an honest look at what's happening with Halo Infinite, and you can see how it's a downward tumble from here, right? Because they want you to sign up for the service. Why would you pay $60, $70 at the store if you could go on Game Pass and get it for $15 a month, right? And it's right there with you, and the game's free to play. Like, Xbox tracks their data via player count, so you never see them talking sales. Look at the numbers for Forza Horizon 5 when it passed 10 million players. They weren't talking about how many people bought that game, how many people were purchasing it at stores physically and digitally online. They were talking about how many people downloaded the game and played Forza Horizon 5. That's the metric that speaks to Microsoft the most. And that's good in a lot of ways, because it means experimental ideas get a lot of support, so you can get something like this again maybe one day. Like, it's never off the table that sneakers from Toys R Us comes back, right? But what happens in turn is stuff like Halo Infinite. It's like, well, why bother getting the disc? In fact, I wanted to shout out my friend Shinobi602. He got the game early because I guess Walmart or someone that he ordered it from had shipped the game out early. So it arrives on his doorstep, and he's like, yo, I've never had this happen before. This is crazy. And he throws the disc in his console. It's like, well, I can't play it. And it's weird because Halo Infinite's entire story leaked, and not that they want to make the story leaks worse, but it was all out there in its entirety. So I thought at first maybe it was security measures, them just locking it down, but more and more it seems like this was a deliberate, intentional thing, because they're listing the game as DLC, and it's because they know the main platform, the main player base is a free-to-play multiplayer, but the way they've marketed it has always been it's separate. It's always been split up. So again, it just comes as a surprise, and I just can't help but feel a little perturbed by this, because yeah, it could be a one-time example. And I know a lot of people think I'm just getting my Jimmies in a rustle over nothing. I'm saying the word Jimmy a lot this video, but I just think if you don't care about Halo, that's fine, but you got to think about other games coming out in the future that you might care about. I think about something like an Elden Ring, or if we're talking just Xbox, I think about Redfall. I think about Starfield, and I think Game Pass is great, but Game Pass and any service that's successful for Xbox shouldn't come at the cost of another customer somewhere else. So while Game Pass is great for John over there, for Jimmy, they may need that disc to plug into their console and work just fine. So Halo Infinite's campaign is fun. It doesn't mean you should avoid it at all costs. It doesn't mean we need to raise a whole storm and go after Microsoft and call them awful and anti-consumer, because I get why they're doing it. But the fact that they're putting them on shelves is what also really bugs me. If you're putting it out there for sale, for people to buy, then it should work. It should work if you throw it in your console. Again, I get the day one title updates. That's not a part of my argument here at all. That's okay with me, because a lot of these games, primarily on PlayStation, by the way, you throw them in, you could download the update, but there is a way to fire them up in their base form. It's why I always say that the PlayStation 4 copies of Cyberpunk 2077 in its base form unupdated, like a PS4 without a Cyberpunk update in it, it's probably worth a lot, because it's just a relic in time of a broken, busted experience that honestly we may never see again in the modern era of gaming, but I shouldn't speak too soon, should I? I'm very passionate about Xbox and back-compat and game preservation. And to me, it's like, well, now we're at the whim of the game store online. And if, God forbid, something ever happens, I don't know what, Xbox goes out and they decide to shut down the division like they almost did with the catastrophic Xbox One. It's like, what happens to Halo Infinite's campaign? Right now, it's not a priority. Xbox is thriving, but I'm thinking in the future, because I've seen what happens when Xbox gets really low. They almost got killed off. So I think this should be more of a story for people, but I want to know your thoughts on this. Do you think what's happening with Halo Infinite is as tragic as I do? I know I'm pretty passionate about physical games and the status of game preservation, but perhaps I'm overreacting here. I don't think so, though. Anyway, looking forward to seeing your thoughts. Check out the rest of our content here if you're interested. And with that, have a great rest of your day. Peace out.